You've been able to speak to your son.
What did you say to him when you visited him in court? Is he doing? How are you feeling today?
I can't stand by you anymore, Dad. Those words hit like a storm in the courtroom as Diddy's own son took the stand, and everything changed. His voice, steady but filled with pain, shook the room and left Diddy frozen, unable to look up. What came next was a powerful 7 minutes that pulled back the curtain on secrets no one was ready for. The jurors were locked in the moment. The prosecutors silently nodded, and just like that, the wall of family support Diddy had relied on vanished right there in front of everyone.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts. When he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
After judges ruled that he would be a threat to intimidate witnesses and victims if released. The 17-page indictment against Combs accuses him of using employees of his business endeavors, including record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits company, a marketing agency, a media company, and television network to facilitate his crimes through acts that included kidnapping, arson, and bribery. If convicted on all charges, which include racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting people across state lines to engage in prostitution, Combs faces a possible sentence of decades in prison.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent. And what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the.
What was going through Diddy's mind that morning as he sat at the defense table? He looked untouchable, calm, dressed in a designer suit worth more than most people's monthly income, surrounded by 5 elite attorneys, whispering quietly and flipping papers with precision. He had no clue his world was about to flip. Outside, chaos ruled, cameras, flashing, fans chanting "Free Diddy," while protesters shouted back with signs demanding justice. Police lined the street, keeping order as the crowd swelled inside the courtroom. It was still like the calm before a storm. Wooden panels muffling every sound, officers at every door watching everything. Then the silence cracked. The prosecutor stood and said the people called Justin Combs to the stand. Diddy's face changed instantly, eyes wide, shoulders tensed, grabbing his lawyer mid-whisper. The entire defense table went into panic mode. They hadn't seen this coming, flipping through notes, scrambling like a teen with no play left. The judge leaned forward, warning the room that any outburst would lead to removal, and she looked directly at Diddy when she said it. They had planned this. Justin came in through a side door far from Diddy. Each step he took was heavy with purpose, dressed in a plain navy suit, no chains, no flash, just raw presence. Diddy's current girlfriend sat behind him, unmoving, his ex 3 rows back, unreadable. No one exchanged looks, no one breathed. The energy changed again when Justin entered. Diddy leaned forward, eyes searching for connection, but his son never looked at him. He just raised his hand, swore to tell the truth, and stared straight at the prosecution as the court reporter typed, and the jurors leaned in. Diddy gripped the table hard, trying to hold onto the only thing left, his composure, because everything else, his freedom, his image, his legacy, now balanced on every word his son was about to say.
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95, that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
Back up a little bit, please.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Come here to support Puff. I'm supporting Puff because he's innocent. And I'm wholeheartedly believing his innocence, and I know he's innocent. So,
So you say you know he's innocent?
1,000%.
Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what? Maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
What was truly at stake for Diddy if his son's testimony went against him was far more than just time behind bars. It was everything: his freedom, his empire, his legacy. Facing charges like trafficking, racketeering, and witness intimidation, Diddy was looking at up to 45 years in prison, which at his age could mean dying behind bars. The prosecution's case was shaky at best until Justin stepped forward. They had text financial records and questionable witnesses, but nothing solid, no insider to confirm what really happened behind closed doors. Diddy's legal team had leaned heavily on family loyalty, painting him as a loving father framed by jealous outsiders. They used old photos and heartwarming stories to sell that narrative to the jury. And it was working until Justin walked in. The financial hit alone could cripple him. His empire pulls in around $90 million a year with ownership in Bad Boy Entertainment, Shahjahan, a multi-million-dollar vodka deal, real estate, and streaming contracts, all at risk of collapse. If convicted, his team estimated losses nearing $700 million. But even more fragile was his image. For decades, Diddy had carefully rebranded himself from flashy rapper to respectable mogul, and every headline was now tearing that apart. The industry was already pulling away, stars distancing themselves, former allies staying silent. Justin Bieber wasn't even returning his calls anymore. The prosecution had waited for the perfect moment to strike, letting Diddy appear calm and in control before flipping the narrative with one witness, his own son. If Justin backed his father, it could cast doubt on everything else. But if he confirmed just 3 key points: that Diddy funneled illegal money through his businesses, that he intimidated witnesses, and that Justin saw it happen personally more than once, it was over. When the prosecutor finally asked, "Did you ever witness your father engage in these activities at his home?" the entire room froze. Even the court reporter paused for a breath, because that answer didn't just decide guilt or innocence, it decided whether Diddy's entire world would fall apart right there in that courtroom.
A federal judge has denied Sean Diddy Combs' efforts to delay the start of his upcoming sex trafficking trial. The music mogul appeared in court today. His legal team wanted to push the trial start date by 2 months, saying they needed more time to prepare because of new charges filed earlier this month. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all federal counts, including racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
The judge denied this immediately when we got into court today. What he said to Combs' attorneys is, for one, this request came very last minute. This trial is supposed to start in weeks. We're supposed to begin jury selection soon, and that he thinks that they have sufficient time to prepare. He even made the point, Lindsay, that it's unclear to him why Combs can't prepare when he has 4 different law firms working on his case. A few other things that the judge said today is he's going to allow in drafts of a memoir that was written by one of the victims. However, the defense had also wanted her diaries and bank statements. The judge is not going to allow that. Also going to allow in outtakes from a documentary called The Fall of Diddy of potential witnesses in this case. And then a lot of today's discussion today, Lindsay, was about victim anonymity. There are 3 alleged victims who the government wants to testify, and they want them to testify under pseudonyms. The defense has agreed about one of them, known as victim number 2, but the 2 others, they want their names revealed in court. So the judge has now said that those 3 victims will testify anonymously. The other thing that they discussed for quite a while was expert testimony. There are experts that the government and defense want to bring in to speak to what can happen when a victim has allegedly been sexually abused. And the judge thought the key point was that you can't infer just because someone stayed in a relationship or didn't talk about abuse sooner.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think the defense is going to look for people who are open to non-traditional lifestyles, who can receive evidence of what defense will sort of style as sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and not get put off and not rush to judgment. On the flip side, the prosecution is going to be looking for folks who are not going to be distracted by, the new shiny object over here, who are not going to get off course by any kind of circus the Diddy team may try to bring into this trial.
So, I mean, this has garnered much media attention. How does that factor in when it comes to selecting a jury? Because no doubt most people have heard of what is going on.
Totally. So it presents a significant problem. Here's the thing. The judge wants to find jurors who are fair and impartial and who have not already developed an opinion as to Diddy's guilt or innocence. Well, that's hard when every media outlet in the world has covered this case. They've likely already heard about it. And so what the judge is going to have to do is determine how much exposure the potential jurors have had to this Diddy saga and whether they can put that aside and simply base their verdict on what happens inside that courtroom and not everything that has gone on preceding that.
The judge's call for order after Justin's testimony wasn't just to quiet the room, it was a direct response to a serious security threat that most reporters missed. Court documents later revealed a man was caught trying to enter with fake credentials, claiming he was part of Diddy's team. In his bag, security found a hidden voice recorder and $10,000 in cash. The courtroom was immediately locked down, and a full emergency security review was ordered for the rest of the trial. When Diddy exited the building, there were no bodyguards, no swagger, just a line of silent attorneys guiding him to a dark SUV. The man who once commanded every room now looked like a shadow of himself, small-cornered and shaken. Justin's testimony was supposed to protect his father. Instead, it shattered everything in just 7 minutes. Decades of image building, of branding himself as a loyal father and sharp businessman, collapsed under the weight of one truth spoken from across the courtroom. The case isn't over, but one thing is clear: Diddy's greatest weapon, loyalty, just became his biggest weakness.